Yeah. Okay. Support each other. Be very encouraging in the group, in the YOUZIGNERS group, and in the webinar. It's important that we're very supportive of each other. The next thing is let's add to that creative environment. And one of the things that we do when we add to the creative environment is we're positive. We share things that are beneficial and supportive of each other. We add to that creative environment, and it's very important to do that. The next thing is look for, we're going to look beyond, look beyond the how to the why. And I'm going to share with you some why things, and that's kind of where I'm my focus, my attention. This webinar is not to teach you how to be perfect. It's to teach you how to get started on that path. The skills that we share with you here are going to give you the why of how those things, of what's necessary in order for you to develop great design skills. Okay. And then the last thing is we really just want to have fun. We're going to make this a fun webinar because it's all about you can make it. It's all about that. We want you to have fun. We want you to make it. We don't want you to give up. We want you to continue. And we want to support you so that you can actually make it. Having said that, let's get started with the things that y'all have shared, because I think this is pretty cool. Melody put this in. She took the skills from last week's webinar. We watched this happen. She took the skills from last week's webinar and immediately put them to work. This was the last of the silhouette images that she used. So Melody, you did a great job with this. Jean had a suggestion in the comments that I thought was really cool, and I'm going to show you how. The how is very less than perfect, but the how is pretty cool to be able to do that. So this is pretty cool. We watched Melody share several images that she had done from a silhouette standpoint, and I really, really appreciate that. If you take the things that we talk about, and this is intended to be an introduction that focuses more on the why. If you'll take the things that we talk about on Friday, and you'll immediately put those to work, you'll go back and you'll try to do that. Don't wait for a replay and then follow it step by step. Instead, take that and move with it. And I'm going to give you a word in just a little bit that appeared in one of the posts that was here. And it's really important to do that. But making sure, as Melody just said, doing something immediately is the key. If you don't do it within the next 24 hours, then you're not going to think it's that important. So make sure that you immediately put those things to work. Now, I know we've just spent an hour together, and oftentimes spending that hour together put you a little bit behind. And so I'm aware of that fact, and I want you to, but I want you within the first 24 hours to take whatever it is that we talked about and find a way to plug that in, put it to work, make it happen, see how well you can remember it, because that's a key. When you pull that from your memory, it's better than when you follow it step by step. Trust me. All right, it just is. But this was really cool, and I thought it was a great thing. So it's kind of inspired part of what we're going to talk about today, because I wanted to talk about video overlays anyhow. All right. Good morning, Tyree. Good to see you. The next thing is this was where this came from, right? So she took an image, and I'm assuming from what she said that this was her son reclining on the back deck, and created a silhouette from it. But in this case, she cut the image out, put something else over the top of it. I thought this was really cool. This is a good idea. This is a really cool idea. Jean said it would be great if you could take that and take that silhouette and put the video of the surfer behind that. And I'm going to show you a really bad example of that in just a little bit, okay? But this was the image that she did that with. And again, think about how you can use these things and repurpose them and make it work for you. Because I think if you do that, then you start to expand your horizons into other areas. And it's pretty cool when that happens. The next one was from Elle, and I really like this. She created this little image right here, kind of using the same thing that we talked about. in the webinar, and she shared this immediately in the group last week right after we did that, and she gives a little step-by-step, which I really like. By the way, when you share your designs, share the process that you went through to get it, because sharing the process that you go through to get it really benefits a lot of other people in the process. Even though we talk about it here, it's kind of good to get that repeated somewhere. And many of you have a completely different twist on how to get there from here, because there's always a way to get there. And when you focus on your end result, then the process that you go through to get there becomes less important and more enjoyable when you're focusing on the end result. But this is really good work here, Elle. I appreciate that. Gene shared another cover with us this week. He had a cover last week. He had a cover this week. Gene's cranking out those ebooks and putting the covers on them, and I think it's really cool. Hello, Ivor. But I want you to get this word right here in Gene's comment, because I think this is important. Lost my mouse. The word inspiration. The webinar didn't tell him how to do it step by step, because none of this had we covered. But we did cover on reflections, and we did cover on flipping images. Sometimes that's all you need. That becomes your inspiration for the thing that you do next. So this is really cool. This is a great cover. This is a great example of what he's trying to illustrate with the title. All right, become a better you. And we have that person looking what appears to be a mirror, and they're two different, they're kind of different people looking in the mirror. So I really like that. Great job, Gene. Looks really good. But I love the fact that you said there's nothing in this that we covered in the webinar, but you were inspired by something that we did in the webinar that brought you to this. That's why we do the webinars the way that we do. And we're trying to provide that level of inspiration that can get you not to follow something that somebody's giving you step by step, but instead to create your own steps. Are we all good with that? Does that make sense? Do you understand why we put the focus there and this whole "you can make it" kind of a thing? Is that clear? Because if you came here for a step by step, then you're going to get disappointed. But if you came looking for how are we going to move you in a positive direction and inspire you to think beyond the box, that is a step-by-step kind of instruction, it'll make a big difference. Okay. Yeah, this gave me some ideas too. I agree with you, Melody. It gave me some ideas for some things I wanted to do as well. So appreciate that, Gene. That was a great job. And that little that one little detail, the word inspiration, can mean everything to everybody. So that was really powerful. Again, that's the value of sharing those things. What brought you to that point in the comments when you post an image, so that the focus isn't just on the image, but it's focused on what it took to get you to that place. The next one, this is a project that Melody was working on while I was not available, and I loved the fact that so many people jumped in to help her. That was really cool. We talked about that last week and the fact that happened. But if you have not watched this video that Melody posted in the group, now you have to wait till the webinar's over. But as soon as the webinar's over, please take the few minutes that it takes. And I think the video is 1 minute and 13 seconds long. I might be wrong about that. It might not even be 1 minute long. But whatever it is, she did a great step-by-step of how she did that. And that was really cool. Yes, I totally agree. I kind of watched that whole flow, and it worked out really well. By the way, let me address something here. I think I missed some questions last week because I realized what happened, and I went back and I read the comments that people made. This is a parenthesis, okay? I read some of the comments that people were making. I didn't realize how much I do this. It was my right eye that was affected by that episode that I had last week. And I always follow the comments with my right eye because I put the chat box on that right eye, and I missed a bunch of things that people said. So I apologize for that. And And that's what was going on this week when Melody was working on this. But this was really good. This sharing that happened here, and as she shares the process, and we've done this a few times in the webinar where we've actually taken something from somewhere else, brought that template into YOUZIGNER, and inside of YOUZIGNER, we created on top of that template, then removed the template. And she walks you through the steps of doing that here, and was able to get the design that she created passed by the publisher. Publishers can be really, really picky, and they have their own rules that they like to play by. And oftentimes those rules are for their benefit, not for ours. Okay, so keep that in mind. But she does a great job of the step-by-step with this. Thank you, Melody. That was really greatly appreciated. And I love the fact that you did that with a video. The next thing, Elle posted this. And so I played with this for a little bit. I want to talk about this a little bit today. I played with this because she makes the comment, this is a color palette that I don't usually go for. And so I honestly kind of like the color palette. I just don't like the range of colors that were there. So I decided I would play with it and see if I could share some things today that might be beneficial as well. Some things you might not have thought of, okay? So I just wanted to play with this. I'm not going to recreate this, but I am going to play with it just a little bit because there were some things that kind of stood out to me that I would do differently. Again, this is a very, very opinionated kind of design. It's always an opinionated process. And I just want to share a couple of little things, all right? One is that the background appears to me to be muddy. And so I want to fix that. And I'm going to show you the process I went through to do that, all right? First thing that I did was I took that image and I dropped it in the color palette, right? Y'all with me? I dropped that in the color palette so that I could play with the colors. I have those 5 colors now that came from this design. And then I took those 5 colors and I took the background color that here appears a little muddy. And this is what I came up with. Does anybody know how I came up with that? I just put it in and put a filter on it. And all of a sudden, the color went from muddy to magnificent, in my opinion. And again, it's just my opinion. And I didn't do a center gradient. That's what was kind of cool about it. It did add a brightness to it. And I did that because I thought that this was just kind of muddy. So I thought back, how do I clear up muddiness? And remember when we talked about the color wheel? And anytime you take a color across the wheel and you pull it through the middle, it becomes muddy. So you have to work your way around the wheel. Well, that's kind of what I did with the filter. And these are 2 different filters, same background. 2 different filters, same background, which is kind of fun, okay? So that looks a little different than this did. So what I did was I put this same information down here on here, and now I've got something easier and cleaner to work with. I'm still in the same color range though, right? And I just simply, I made it come to life. There's a couple of things that I noticed here. This is a lot easier to read than this is. And so I changed the font for this. Yeah, I thought the lower third really stood out when I did this. And just little things. These are just kind of fun little things that you can do. And it seems to make a big difference. And we'll talk about that when we get to the canvas. But this was an interesting project. The other thing that I did, notice here, this gets lost. Here it stands out. And it's because I made this circle color, this color right here, the center of this, which gives it just a little bit more flavor than I had over here. Y'all agree with that? You don't have to, but I just thought it was a way to kind of make it look a little sexier, if I can use that term to describe a design. But I just cleaned this up a little bit, and I took this color right here and put the circle behind the globe from the inside of this and did that. We'll play with that on the canvas in just a little bit. The next thing is, while we're in and I made this, I set this on a YouTube video thumbnail to make a splash page out of it, because that's kind of what it looks like, okay? And this is all about Elle's new global streaming TV channel, and so she wants to promote that in that way. So it's kind of going to fit on that video thumbnail sort of a thing. Am I correct, Elle, about that? So this was cool. Melody had a great idea, and I'm actually going to show you the idea in just a little bit. All right. When you see the idea, and I've saved that for the canvas, when you see the idea, I think it was a great idea, Melody. So I appreciate that as well. So I took it, the palette plus filter video thumbnail kind of stream, and I went this way with it. I like to put an overlay sometimes over videos because it cleans things up. How many of you have ever done a Zoom room and you see the images on a Zoom room, or you've done a Zoom meeting with somebody? Have any of you ever done that? I know some of you have done it with me. But if you've ever done a Zoom room, then what you'll find out is that you have two images there, but you've got all the noise in the background. And so this is a Zoom recording between me and Daniel Herder. And in order to clean it up and make it look neat and have a place where I can run information, I actually put an overlay over the top of that. This is what I use YOUZIGNERS for more than anything with videos, is to create an overlay like that. We'll talk about how to do that in just a little bit, but this is a great place to be able to run this kind of information here. And when you, but again, when you have those busy kind of backgrounds, this is a great way to make it look really neat. And this was a Zoom room recording that I did with Daniel. We decided that what we would do, I decided that what we would do with this is I would create an overlay, and then we would run information that was being talked about in the video down in this dark area here, and as well as put images in there from the thing itself. So that's kind of where I want to go with that. Okay. So if there are any questions, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to move to the canvas. I am going to open up Camtasia simply because this was in Camtasia. There are lots of other ways to do that. Gene's oftentimes talking about VideoPad, and VideoPad is a great tool where you can do some of exactly the same things we're talking about here. I just happen to have these videos inside of Camtasia. So this is not, I'm not encouraging people to go out and spend $350 to buy Camtasia. I'm just simply saying that's where I happen to have this video housed. So I'll show you that in just a minute. Okay. So while I switch my screen, you be thinking about any questions that you might have, and we'll move on. Okay. So give me a second to change my screen. And we will move on. All right, let me know if you see my canvas in YOUZIGNERS. You see my canvas in YOUZIGNERS? Yes, okay, good. All right, this is it. Now, I'm going to do this. I'm going to save this right here as a group so we can bring it back in a minute. Because I want you to see the process I went through to do this. Let me double check to make sure my group got saved. It did. It saved it all. So that's cool. So now I'm going to delete the whole group and we're going to start from scratch. All right. Because interestingly enough, what I did was I brought this color palette in. This was the background right here. So I went to the background, made my background with the color picker. So I had exactly that color. And I picked that background to be that color. All right. Y'all remember the steps we did before when we used that? You remember when we took the color pick, we took the color palette, brought it in as an image, laid it in like that. Remember that? Well, that's really helpful to have that. So now this is that amazing color that we had before, or maybe not so amazing. So let's take a filter here. Okay, that's not the color. I'm sorry. I have the wrong color. Didn't I? Oh, I have the wrong color. It's this color right here. That's the color I was looking for. So let me change that color. I'm going to do it simply by doing this. Now delete that. Now I have the right color on there. All right. Now, this is what I did next. Is like this color is kind of muddy looking to me. So I went over to the filters and I did that. And then I reduced the opacity of that to 50%. What do you think? That helped, right? Made it a little better. But when I went down here to the retro, watch what happens when I reduce this to 50%. The cool thing about the retro is it makes the center part of this warm, right? It's got a darker, it's like a center gradient. Earlier, Melody mentioned that's a center gradient. It's not, it's the filter. It's the retro filter inside of the filter tool. And when you reduce the opacity, it makes a big difference. Now, there's a couple of things I can do with this, right? But I can't do anything with it that won't also be filtered. So what I did instead was I took this image, the retro image, and I downloaded it. I took the sepia image and I downloaded it. So I had those two things downloaded and made them available. So let's turn this back to transparent because now I have those both in the downloads right here, right? So we'll take this. I got to remove the filter first. Go back to original. We'll go back to the uploads. And there is that color. Do you see the difference that made? It's the same color. I just filtered it. But I think it makes a difference in how it looks on the palette. It's almost metallic. That's kind of what I was going for. Now, I could play with this and make it more metallic-ish. Metallic-ish, if that's a word. Let's do this. We'll take this image right here, and I can do this. I'll start in about right here. I'll pull this out like this. Make this like this, make this a little bit higher here. And now what I'm going to do is grab this darker color right here. And I'm going to blur the outside edges like that. And then I'm going to play with the opacity of it like that. And I can begin to add other things, right? Yes, that is, I don't like to have to download the images a lot, but that is a solution in this situation, Melody. You're right. Downloading the background and then re-uploading it. So we try to just make it the background. Well, sometimes you can play with that and make the background an image, and it works out well for you. Okay. The other thing that I could have done is, and if you want to make this more metallic-like, I can go over here to this background color. I can turn that background red like that. Click on this and reduce the opacity just a little bit. And you see what happens? How cool is that? No response. Sexy. Just letting, and remember, gold and red work well together. So if I want to create a gold color from whatever that original yellow was, again, let me ask you a question. We've taken this is the same image right here, but look what we've done with this, with this background right here. Look what we've done with that. We've taken this, which was slightly muddy, and we've turned it into something which was slightly magnificent. Would you agree? But we played with that image. Now let's see what this looks like when we take our saved group over here, and we'll bring that group in. And all I want from this, I'm going to ungroup this, and I'm going to remove this background. Okay. Now how's it look? While I drink coffee, I'm going to let you respond. But see, by filtering it first, saving the image, then bringing the image back in and playing with the opacity of the image with a colored background, I've actually got this looking like it's more like gold in the middle or on the outside, right? Stephen, I'm not sure what you meant by the preferred, by the lower third being pushed first. Yes, I do know you love the metallic. And honestly, the black and gold look really cool together. Yeah, it looks really cool together. So now you can add to this whatever you want, right? Now I can add some cool stuff. And this was Melody's suggestion, and I really like it because this is intended to be a streaming TV. A streaming image looks kind of cool. She created one, I created one. It looked pretty awesome. Okay. No, Marshall, I appreciate that, and I can relate to the eye issues. So all about it. But yeah, I thought that was kind of a, Ray's asked the question, why don't you just choose a different color palette to begin with? And you certainly could have. I just took exactly the color images that she had, played with them. That's what I did. And again, it's like there's 42 ways to fillet this fish. This just happened to be one of them. And I thought it was kind of cool. Tyree's saying that would make a nice looking logo too, an icon for a logo. Yeah, I agree. Just trying to, and sometimes you just have to play with it. And several times we've put a color palette up, and I said I would have never picked these colors, but in this case, I can have some fun with it. And this is a case where I probably would have never picked that color, but because it was the color, I took that color and I made the color something that I thought worked pretty cool. Okay, while we're here, let me show you something else that I did. I had a need for this. I had a need for this little, this is the actual image. This is an actual replication of an image that Facebook uses for their live feed icon on the Facebook iPhone app. All right, y'all familiar with that? So what I did was, since we don't have an icon for that, I decided I would create one. Okay, so this is the one I created, and then I changed the color so that it would be the red to match what goes on with inside of Facebook. Again, these are really, really easy to do, but don't ever, like this image right here, there's not an icon for that. But I put two pieces together and created that icon, right? So how many of you make your own icons if you have something, and that kind of keeps you out of that whole being in trouble kind of thing too, because you make it slightly different? Yeah, it's kind of necessary to do that. But this is what I did. I'll just take this one apart so those of you who don't do that can see it. All right, this is a circle. This is actually a circle that I turned into an ellipsis, right? This is that same vector image that I pulled in over here a minute ago, only it's this one right here. All right, which gave it that kind of funky rounded sort of corners there, not perfect, but sort of rounded edges that look right anyhow. Okay. And so I took that ellipsis. This is the other piece of that. It took me all of about 40 seconds to put this together. This is simply a triangle, and I turned it on its side, pulled this over into the appropriate place, grabbed this, put that in the middle, and then took this little circle and dropped it in the middle of that. All right. And that's all I did. Yeah, that's cool, Gene. That's exactly right, Steve. Parts is parts. I just took the parts and put them together. And, you know, we've had we've done several of these. We did a fish one day. We did that kind of thing. The whole purpose of this is to do exactly what I was saying. It's to inspire you to say, hey, I don't care what it is. I can meet that challenge. I can recreate that. One day we created a Thunderbird off of an image that I took on somebody's tailgate as they were stopped at the stoplight, right? And we just put the pieces together because you can make it with the pieces that are there. They're not that difficult to do. And we did that Thunderbird in about, I don't know, 10 minutes or so. Y'all remember that? Because I think I still have the pieces right here. But again, you can simply reproduce this. And here's the end result. This is what we did. That's the Thunderbird that we created from the image that I took off of a tailgate. Let me see if I can find the original. Here's the original. This is the picture that was on the tailgate. And from that, we created that. Right? So don't ever feel like you're missing something, because you're not. All you're doing is you got to find a way to grab that and be inspired by it. Okay? Took a picture of somebody's tailgate. And created this look right here. So again, don't feel like you're missing out on something. Just take the tools that you have and create what you need. All right. That's why we do this. It's not to give you a step-by-step to create a Thunderbird. The purpose was to give you a step-by-step on how do you reproduce what you're looking for. You know, I know what my end result's going to be. And it's a lot easier for me to just create it myself. Right? All right. Any questions about this while we're here? I want you to see, is this email address right here easier to read? Which icon are you asking about, Dennis? When I had this this right here in this font right here, which is what it was originally. If I change this to the lobster font, one thing I would really like to see us do, and that's put a search engine up here so that you can find these things. But I switched it to the Helvetica font here because that was a lot harder to read. It's really important that you're able to read that. And I kept that font and that font the same. No, the reason why they're called icons is because they represent something that you're going to do. Like in this case right here, this icon is the live feed icon on the Facebook app. Okay, so this right here now. I've got this the same color as this because I think it looks good that way. All right. Let me get all of this out of the way here. I ungrouped that, so I have to do that. This one should still be grouped. All right. Any questions about that? Good question, Dennis. If I wanted to say, you're talking about a favicon, and that's the image that appears up here at the top like this. Okay. You don't need an extension. Those can all be done with JPEG files or PNG files, either one, and they work really well. Okay. No, same thing. Exactly the same thing. In response to your question, Dennis, yes, they're exactly the same thing. If I was going to use it, and we did a whole webinar one day on just using those inside of your website as a home button or as a cart button or as a variety of other things, podcast button, those kinds of things. So yes, you can do that. So the question is, how's this going to look as a YouTube thumbnail? I like it. There's one thing I would do to this just because it's me, and I think it's probably what I would want to do, and that is I'd put a slight border around the outside of it and see if it doesn't look better. Yeah, I think so. Right? Do you like it better with the border? The cool thing about creating it as a border is it's really easy for me. I can save it like this, and then I can do this, and I can save it, and I have it in another fashion. So that's the reason why I use the border for that, because it's just really simple to do. Now you could add all the other stuff that you wanted to add here. Melody could put Elle could put her business name across the top up here. There's some cool things that you could do with this from this point on, but I just wanted to kind of sexy up the background a little bit, and that was my goal, and I think we were able to accomplish that in this situation using the same. No, actually, the thumbnail itself is the thumbnail itself. This is the thumbnail right here. This is called the thumbnail. right here. I know it's, I sometimes call that a splash page because if it's anywhere else other than in YouTube, it's not a thumbnail, it's a splash. But that's the size of that. No, that's an actual screenshot. This is actually inserted in a screenshot inside of YouTube. This is a YouTube overlay. That's where it's at. Now, what it does is it reduces that size to make it this size over here on the side. But that's where you use your description and other things. Remember, don't ever completely rely on your image. You take advantage of all of the other tools that you have available to you. And we talk about that all the time, particularly Facebook ads. Don't try to put too much stuff in your graphic. Instead, use your graphic to capture attention and get the person to take the next action. So, all right, the next thing I want to do here is I want to switch screens. We're going to jump over here. We're going to talk about this overlay for a minute. What I did is and I'm going to have to do something. I have to do something slightly different to show you this. But what I did was I took a screenshot of the two of us talking from Zoom. All right. And then I dropped that in the YouTube thumbnail so that it's the size of the YouTube video, which is 740 by 12, whatever. So I dropped it in that image right there. And then I created these overlay panels to go around the top of it. But let me show you what I did with the overlay panels. Okay. Gainer's asking a really important question. This little eyeball right here will let me preview this like this. Okay. So that's that little eyeball right there. When it says preview and you're in a custom preset, it will let you preview it for that custom preset. That's a YouTube thumbnail. And when you look at the options that you have with YouTube, you have a YouTube channel icon. All right. And that's that little box, that's square box, 800 by 800. Then you have the YouTube channel, which is like television, big screen TV size. And then you have the thumbnail, which is 1200 by 720 or 1280 by 720, whatever that is. Right? Yeah, and a lot of people get lost with that little thumbnail comment, and that's the reason why I try to cover this occasionally, is to make sure that you don't forget that. So let's talk about how did we get to this. I'm going to have to switch my screen to Canvas for just a minute, okay? Or a Camtasia for just a minute. Takes a second to switch the screen here. So this is my Camtasia screen. Can you all see that? I can move this so I can visit the chat a little easier here. So this is Camtasia, and I've got several overlays here. This one's gray. I had a blue overlay because I wanted to see what that blue overlay was going to look like, and I don't like it at all. All right. But because I made the overlay in YOUZIGNERS using the thumbnail, I can now put this and see how it fits. I don't have it centered, but you see how it fits. I don't know if I can or not, Melody. That's a good question. Let me see if I can do that. I looked back here to see earlier today, and I don't remember. I got a whole bunch of stuff in the way. So if I take the overlay templates and remove them, I think it shows up. I can't remember whether it does or not. Let's see if we got the original here. Yes, I do. Here's the original. Okay. If Camtasia will play. Camtasia uses lots of resources. And so being live on a webinar is going to tax me just a little bit. There we go. It's starting to come into appearance. All right, let's see if we can get this to work. Remove all this stuff. As he talked about products, we made the products appear in that black bar at the bottom. Had it been busy, we would never have been able to do that. Does that make sense? That's one of the reasons why I wanted to use an overlay with this. So let me see if I can get this to go again. It seems to want to hang and not work well. Not playing right. So there we go. Yeah, it's going to be an issue, and I'm just going to park it here to answer Melody's question. Do you see this is not the image that we started with. So I've probably done this as in a two-step and put the overlay on it, and can't. This was done a couple of years ago, so. Gainer's asking a good question, and this is a key question, okay? When you add a design into Camtasia along with the MP4 tracks, does it matter if it's a PNG or a JPEG? The answer to that question is it depends on what you want the image to do. These images are all PNG files, and the reason why they're PNG files is because I didn't want anything in the background. So I made the background transparent. And the only way you can overlay a transparent background is that you have to have it as a PNG file. Does that make sense? But see, I wanted this to be right here when we talked about that product, and I needed it to have a transparent background. And it doesn't matter whether it's Camtasia or anything else. If you want to save an image with a transparent background, or if that becomes important in this situation. Now, obviously, these overlays that are right here, each of these overlays that I had created, each one of these all were saved as a PNG file so that they would have a transparent background. Because they're an overlay, I want the video to play behind it. All right. Any questions about that? Really easy thing to do, a really common use of YOUZIGNER and YouTube videos or videos of whatever nature together. Gene does lots of it. As he said a minute ago, one of his favorite topics is working these two things together. So I have a kind of a ridiculous little example to show you. And it's really a bad example. So I'm going to tell you up front, this is not the best example I ever had. But I thought of this just as I got ready to put the webinar up this morning. I said, oh, wait a minute. I've got to take that one step further, the little video playing in the background thing with as Gene had pointed out in the group, with an overlay, a silhouette overlay. So I have a bad example of that. Y'all got to work with me here in order to do this, but give me just a second, and I'll show you my example of this, okay? This is the image that I showed you last week. Can you see this? I want to make sure this is visible. This is the image that I had last week. I put a white overlay on it simply so it would show up. All right. I left the silhouette as a cutout. And I put behind it a really bad video that I have of my grandson and I having a pillow fight in the hotel. All right. It's what I had. So I put this together so you can see this overlay. And I made this one white because this is a really dark video inside of the hotel room. But again, not the best example, but this is how you would use that in this particular case. And this is the two of us having a pillow fight in the hotel room. All right. Again, another example of using an overlay to create an image that can be cool. Okay. But again, explore your options with that. Don't get lost in, well, that was a really crummy video. I know it was a crummy video, but it's what I had on my phone at the moment, like 8 minutes before time for me to go live. So sometimes you work with what you got. And we'll go back to the canvas now with designer, and we'll wrap this up. I got one more that I want to share with you. But this was the example. What I did was I overlaid this. I laid the video in here with the two of us on Zoom, and then I parsed out the boxes. Okay. Because I think they really help to grab more attention. I'm going to play with a new thing. I've got a tool that puts the that will actually play your SRT file, your voice overlay on top of your video. And I'm going to create. I couldn't do it today, but I'm going to create that and see if that will actually play inside of this black area. I think it will, and if it does, it'll be amazing. I promise you. And I'll show that to you next week. Okay. But this is what I did. I created this overlay here. And you can see this is one piece. But again, in answer to the question, what type of file types do you do? I just took these. These are just colored images over here. And I made them all white so that it would match the background of this kind of funky looking silhouette of my grandson, so I could play the video of the pillow fight in the background. All right. Any questions about that? Yeah, I think it will work, Melody. I'm really curious to find out. So we're gonna give it a shot. I'll have some time to play with that over the weekend and see if we can make that work. That's kind of a cool opportunity. So, but again, all you do to make your overlays is you just simply create areas that you block that off. And you can see what I did here by doing this. You can see I blocked off those areas. And that's what you do in an overlay. You're blocking something off so that the video can play in the transparent area. Pretty simple stuff. Any questions before we go? Hopefully I've answered your questions as we've gone. I was able to see them just a little bit. Yeah, I really am. I just haven't had a chance to do that, Carol, and I have not forgotten you. I thought about that this morning as I was getting ready. I've not forgotten that. I've got a couple of things I personally need to get fixed in order to make that work. So give me a chance to do that, and I will do that at some point, okay? And this overlays a piece of that GIF sign puzzle as well. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate your attention and your questions and all of the things that you brought to the table today. It's been pretty amazing. Now, put something to work, will you please, between now and next week. And I'll look forward to seeing your creations in the group. You all have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I look forward to talking to you soon.